Hi, I'm David from Kronos Audiovisual, and today on the Video Review Diaries we want to look at a brand new product from True Colour Industries, or TCI. This is the TCI podium platforms. This is a really interesting new product. There will eventually be 6 versions of the platform. This is version 1, the black one here, and the one that the Premier amplifier is sitting on is the version 3. They look very similar. They all come in 2 colours, red or black. They are metal skinned. What makes these really interesting is they're very revolutionary, in our opinion, as platforms go. They start at £350, which is not cheap, but it's also not ridiculously expensive. And they go up with the Model 2. This is the Model 1. They go up to the Model 2 at $499 and the Model 3 at $650. There will be 3 more expensive platforms coming slightly later this year. But at the moment, there are 3 models available. We've had the opportunity now to test them and have had a long chat with the guys from TCI about the design process and why these are very different to other platforms on the market. What makes them different is that a lot of platforms, first of all, can be very thick. These are actually, if I turn this around to you, you'll see they're relatively thin, and they will fit easily into conventional racks, which again, a lot of the bigger platforms won't fit. And a lot of the bigger platforms are much thicker, so it's much more difficult to fit them into racks because there just isn't the height and to put components on them. The other thing that's really interesting about these is the vast majority of platforms on the market are very good at reducing vibration, but it tends to be vibration at the lower end of the frequency scale. So things like turntables, there's a large number of different versions of platforms to fit under turntables, but essentially the vast majority of these are really only affecting the really low frequencies. What makes these podiums really interesting and really effective on all types of equipment, including source components, amplifiers, turntables, so even speakers, in theory you could use on them, is that these work at a lot more a lot of different frequencies can be affected by these. So in other words, things like transformers, circuit boards, things like that, these really reduce the vibration. So they're ideal for, as I say, source components like CD players, streamers, DACs, also amplifiers. There's no issue with weight, which is really good. So the more expensive platforms are not designed to carry more weight, which is the case with a lot of these platforms, because all these platforms will carry significant weight. I don't think there's anything that you're going to have in your system that's going to cause a problem to set on top of them. There is obviously suspension on them, and if I squeeze it, you can't see it, but the platform actually moves when I squeeze it. So there is dampened materials inside the platform. But the great thing is that when you listen to these, when you put an amplifier or when you put a source component on, the difference is instantaneous. You can hear it immediately. We were really shocked. We tried the cheapest platform first, put it underneath a streamer, and it was instantly better. There was much better clarity. All aspects of the soundstage and detail retrieval, even microdynamics and dynamic range was massively improved. So in our opinion, these are the most impressive platforms that we've seen from almost any manufacturer. And the fact that they start at £350, which is expensive for a platform, but not overly expensive, given the jump in performance these things give you. And as you go up into the more expensive platforms, they have more and more material inside them, which helps to isolate the platforms from the equipment sitting on them. The other thing that's quite interesting is the fact that you can, for example, run different platforms in the same system. So for example, on source components, I would probably suggest using things like the smaller podium ones, which are 350, but on things like amplifiers and equipment where you've got bigger transformers, I think things like the Podium 2 or the Podium 3 is a better option. So you can add these to the system. You can start off with one podium under one component and carry on and carry on. The bigger podiums are really designed for much higher end equipment. So really, I think what you spend on the podium really will relate to the level of equipment that you've got. But if you have the opportunity, call in the store or give us a call, and we'll try and explain what podiums we think would give the best performance jump in terms of your equipment. As I say, we've found that 1 and 3 tend to be at the moment the more popular models. I think because 2 sits in the middle, sometimes that is the case. Although the Podium 2 platform is equally as good at its price point as the 1 and the 3. But I think a lot of people with amplification will probably, especially better quality amplification, will probably want to use something like a Podium 2 or a Podium 3. And anybody using source components will probably run with a Podium 1, unless it's very high-end equipment, and then we would suggest going up to the 2 or the 3. But these are, we believe, really exciting developments. Often something like this will be a really cost-effective upgrade. Instead of you changing your source component or your amplifier, sometimes putting them and isolating them correctly on things like podiums will make a huge difference and is vastly more cost effective than changing the component itself. So, if you get the opportunity to say, come in the store, we can happily do a 30-second demonstration, which will demonstrate the podium on a piece of equipment and off. And as I say, it's so easy to hear the differences. I mean, it's not subtle. You'll hear it immediately that you use the podium. So, as I say, we believe these are particularly good value for money, and they're beautifully made. With a metal skin, and even on the back of the unit, if you look at the unit from underneath, you've got again nice feet on it. The only thing I would just mention is that, because this is quite a thin layer of metal, it's not a good idea to put spikes directly on it, because you can damage the metal or pierce it. But other than that, you can put obviously spike shoes on underneath. So any type of equipment will fit on these platforms easily. And as I say, if you get the opportunity, come in and have a listen, because honestly, they are really revolutionary, in my opinion, at their price points, at what they're capable of doing in the system. So as I say, we have them available on demonstration in our stores, and obviously you can buy them online as well if you're not close to one of the stores. So thank you so much for listening.